It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Marietta College head esports coach, Coach Derek Gaines. How are you doing today?
Terrific. How are we doing today, Brandon?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in the sport of esports?
To be completely honest, at the beginning, I really didn't know. I was a huge Overwatch fan, from when it started in roughly 2016, all the way up to the point where they had created the Pro League in that, and they were airing matches, and I was like, really started to catch my eye. And one day I just got a Twitter DM, and it was my buddy, and he was sending me the application to Marietta College's Overwatch coach position, and I was looking at it, I was like, "There's no way this is a real thing." And I put my name in the hat. I got lucky, and I got the position, and I mean, I knew partially what the industry was like, and I was really into it. But once I got my foot in the door and was actually doing my dream job, I fell that much more in love. So yeah.
What was it like, obviously, getting to work for a gaming control machine company?
Uh, when I was working at Micro Center prior to, being hired on at Marietta full time and whatnot, I was still kind of within the industry. I specifically kind of focused and was proficient in, constructing gaming PCs. I worked in the build your own department, so I was constantly working with, people my age that had, similar viewpoints on the industry, and we're always spitballing ideas on, how to build these really, really cool machines that were going to run your games super well. That way you were, not having to worry about being bogged down by, the physical hardware that you were playing on. You just kind of had to rely on your skill and things like that. So, I mean, it was definitely helpful. And, uh, I wear many hats as a coach, and one of them, whether fortunately or unfortunately, can sometimes be a IT professional. So, it's nice to have that background in case, one of my kids' machines, they're like, "Hey, my mic's not working. Coach, can somebody help here?" And I'm able to easily take care of that.
Of course, how did that help to obviously get into college coaching and having that background in gaming control?
Uh, you know, that was kind of like one of my selling points when I was being interviewed, at least for the Overwatch coach position. I told him straight up, I was like, I deal with these machines on the daily. If one goes down or if you need help in troubleshooting, you don't necessarily have to have, another coach call our IT department on campus and make sure that they're available to come in and immediately look at what's going on. I can diagnose something right then and there.
What were some of your roles as the Overwatch coach?
In terms of Overwatch coach, it was more just strictly as a peer coach. I was there trying to develop the players, create different strategies and compositions for the team, and provide them direction, basically. But ever since I stepped up or was promoted to the head coach position for the program, you know, I still obviously retain the coaching part. I make sure everybody's at practice. I'm spectating everything, trying to still provide that direction to all seven of our teams. But I'm also a team psychologist. I recruit. Obviously, still like an IT technician to a certain degree. Stream personality, tour guide for the college, social media strategist for the program. Uh, Logistics, manager, referee, and then, most importantly, just like a mentor, friend, and leader.
Of course, what was that feeling like getting promoted to become a head coach for the esports program?
At that point, I had already kind of had the sense that that's what I wanted to do after being the Overwatch coach part-time for so long. But it was definitely a dream come true moment. But I also at that moment knew that that's when the real hard work was about to begin. That's where I was like, I've got the position. I need to prove myself and be able to provide these students with exactly what I was proposing. So,
For my listeners that don't know, what is this? What is esports and how do you play esports?
so typically the elevator pitch definition for esports is that it's competitive multiplayer video games. Um, we typically play all of our matches on gaming PCs online against different schools. But we also have a title that we offer that is done on the Nintendo Switch on their online platform. So, um, esports kind of started back in the arcade days of, friends trying to compete for high scores and things like that. And then moved on to newer games and things like that. So you got your Street Fighters, your Tekkens, Mortal Kombats, and one of the earliest adopted esports that is kind of still played today for the most part, Counter-Strike, uh, Dota 2, League of Legends, things like that. So, and now it's evolved into, where we're sitting today.
Of course, what are the games that you can be able to play in esports?
The seven titles that Marietta College at least offers at the varsity level today are going to be you've got League of Legends, Overwatch 2, Valorant, Rocket League, Fortnite, Rainbow Six Siege, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and that's going to be the one that's played on the Nintendo Switch.
Of course, with those six, do you also still get to play Madden and NBA 2K?
So we do have club level titles that we offer as well. Those are going to be just purely based off of student interest. We do have a PlayStation 4 in the room as well with copies of FIFA. If a student has their own copies of Madden or NBA 2K, they're more than happy to play within our facility for sure.
Of course, on a competition day, what does a typical competition day look like in esports for Marietta?
At least on, my side of things, I try to get there at least an hour prior to my students, who actually also arrive, about an hour early to their game. I'm there ahead of time just to make sure the room's in good shape, that, all the computers are up to date, my setup's all good to go, the stream's looking good. And then once the students get there, it's about an hour early. They typically, start immediately into their warm up routines. Some of them, I tried to get it to the point where all of the team is doing the same kind of warm up routine, but can be a little conflicting just because some individuals, have different ways that they like to prepare for matches. So some of them like to, put their headset on, put music on, and just zone out and be in the practice range or be in a competitive match and really just kind of warm their fingers up, get in that, mindset of the game, while others like to get hydrated, use the bathroom, meditate, stretch, and just kind of get in their mental zone, not necessarily even like look at the game up until match time because they know what needs to be done. Depending on the league we're in as well, I'll take the time prior to check the players in, go over any map picks or bans that are going to be done for that game, our opening strategy for the map, things like that.
Of course, on a typical match game day, how long is the duration of the game lasting?
It depends on the game that's being played for the most part. You've got titles like Rocket League where best of three series could last anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes. Um, then you've got things like League of Legends where a best of three series is going to take anywhere from, uh, 2.5 to 4 hours. Um, it can be a little crazy at times. But our typical match days on Saturdays, with all the games that we offer, I'm typically there from about 9 in the morning to 7 or 8 at night, depending what's going on. So it can be a long day, but everybody's always having a blast.
Of course, during that long hours, as a head coach, what are some of the things that you do to motivate your players to keep that performance up and be at the top level of esports?
Motivation wise is, I mean, a lot of the time they just are very driven on self-improvement. So, I want to give them different things that they can work on to motivate them to keep improving. I don't try to necessarily let them sit there for our practices are typically 2 hours apiece. I don't want them to sit there for the whole 2 hours staring at the screen. I encourage them to get up, move around, talk with their teammates after a game to, talk about anything that they saw that either they did well or that they didn't do well. Um, but motivators, again, it's mostly all just like, hey, I know you guys are here to improve and to be in a team setting. So that's typically their sole motivator.
How has it helped you growing up with you being able to play video games? How has that helped you to then now becoming a head coach of an esports program?
Um, I've been a gamer my whole life. I've started with, Sega Genesis playing Mortal Kombat with my dad and whatnot. So you, over the years, you obviously kind of get accustomed to the games. You build game knowledge and competency. You know the different lingo, the vocab and terminology that's used in different games. But you get to know the in and outs of the industry as a whole as well. You get to know kind of ahead of times what games are going to be popular, what games or how they're played at a higher level, things like that.
Bruce, who are some of the teams that you compete against, different colleges that you compete against?
Um, it can be actually pretty interesting because we're in so many different uh, conferences that we can play a whole spectrum of different schools. So we're part of the National Association of Collegiate Esports, or NACE for short. That is what I often like to, equate to the NCAA of esports. We can face D1 schools all the way down to community and technical colleges across the United States. So, for example, we've played like Ohio State, Rutgers, Purdue, Virginia Tech, UCF, at least within that conference. We're also a part of the Great Lakes Esports Conference, which is going to be comprised of like similarly sized schools across Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. And we get to play some of our Ohio Athletic Conference rivals in there. We're naturally a D3 school, so we get to play schools such as like Ohio Northern, Mount Union, Tiffin, Trine, um, and then going back to some more bigger examples for our collegiate R6 conference. We've played the University of Cincinnati, my alma mater, go Bearcats. Um, Army West Point. Uh, for our League of Legends conference, we've played the University of Michigan, Michigan State, Morehead State, and countless others.
Of course, what is that like? Obviously, getting to compete against some of those D1 schools like Ohio, Northwestern, and those schools like Army versus competing against like different D2 schools and D3 schools.
It's actually a pretty interesting dynamic. Pardon me. But at least in Ohio, the D3 schools are extremely competitive. There's teams that have extremely high rankings that have had programs that have been around for quite a long time. And in terms of like the D1 schools, it seems like a lot of them are just now kind of getting caught up in the esports industry. A lot of them kind of remained at the club level for a long time and didn't, get their varsity status or weren't a true athletics program for, up until recent. So they actually, I mean, I'm not saying that they lag behind a whole lot in terms of skill and everything. They have a huge pool of students often to pull from. So, um, depending on who it is, we've beaten schools like Butler, we've beaten Rutgers, things like that. But the competition oftentimes is equivalent whether we're facing a D1 school or a D3 school. The best, Overwatch teams in collegiate terms are often, you got like Maryville, Harrisburg, uh, North, Northwood. So these are all like extremely small schools that focus on one thing and do it to a extremely good level.
Of course, when competing against those schools, like let's say Ohio State, do you have to go travel to Ohio State to then compete with them, or would you have to just log on to a program and you could compete from Maryville?
So we can compete straight up from our facility on campus. We do that for, I would say, like 95% of the matches. The only time that we've really gotten to travel for matches so far have been post-season runs within the Great Lakes Esports Conference. So if you qualify within your bracket, they have an end of season or post-season LAN event in Columbus, Ohio at their game arena, and we get to travel for that. But no, 95 to 98% of the time we're doing our matches from within our facility on campus.
What is that experience like getting to travel to those competitions when it comes to the championships?
It's honestly the highlight, not only for, my season because it's like the nice little cherry on top, but I know it's definitely the highlight for my students as well. They get to go to a different place. They get to, tell their teachers, hey, I'm sorry I have to miss class today, but we're in a championship run and we're traveling, and it kind of just further solidifies that legitimacy for us on campus. And it's also just an absolute blast to get to be in an environment with so many different people of like-hearted and like-mindedness. Everybody there is a gamer. Everybody, does it to a pretty darn good level. And it's just nice to be in a room with so many different people that, share that common interest.
What does the recruitment process look like for those prospective gamers looking to get into the sports of esports?
So, I mean, we're always recruiting throughout the semester and even summer and whatnot. And for us, at least, the process is pretty straightforward. I either scout the individual or they come to me to request more information. And at that point, I try to get them to fill out. We have two forms that are, of great importance for us. It's our recruitment inquiry form that basically gives me your information of, where you're from, what game are you interested in, what academic interests do you have on campus, things like that. And then our scholarship tryout form. So, we do offer scholarships as a varsity program on campus. And in order, for us to be able to award that, we require that you go through a tryout process that can be done either on campus in our facility or online via, a Discord call, which is, basically what we're on now, but titled something different. Um, and then typically, I'll give them, 15, 20-minute spiel on, what we're up to here at Marietta College esports, what we've got, available in terms of academic majors, what to expect in a week of practice, things like that. And then I'll spectate their gameplay for about an hour, hour and a half, and be able to make my decision from there as to whether or not I'd like to, award a scholarship. But just because you didn't do a scholarship tryout or you're a walk-on doesn't mean you can't be a part of the program. I've had countless individuals come to me just because they're like, "Hey, I've heard this exists on campus. I have some experience. I want to be a part of this. Will you guys take me?" And I'm never going to tell anybody no. Are you going to immediately be on the starting roster and things like that? It might not always be the case, but I'm not going to ever shy anybody away from being a part of the program. We want to be as inclusive as we can.
Of course, when the process starts and you're scouting out the players, what are some of the things that you're looking at in those players that are playing those video games?
The three biggest questions that I'll typically ask myself when I'm watching somebody's gameplay or I'm interviewing a recruit is, are you a driven and dedicated individual that wants to improve or learn? Uh, are you a committed person? Am I going to be able to always rely on or like count on you being at practice, be at the meetings, be at the matches, and not flake out on me? And are you a healthy and respectful teammate? I tell recruits all the time, I would much rather have a person who is not of super high skill, but that is extremely respectful, driven, and wants to see the team grow and improve rather than, an extremely talented individual who's just going to create toxicity and be a cancer to the team.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've built for the esports program?
Absolutely. So ultimately, the students are a student athlete at Marietta College. Um, their academics and their scholastics are always going to take precedent, in my opinion. So we want to use what we've built here at Marietta College Esports to be a stepping stone or a springboard to that success in college. Our ultimate goal, again, is to just have them graduate in 4 years, walk across the stage with a diploma in one hand and hopefully a good job lined up in the other. Um, so we try to use all of the different related and connected industries within esports to facilitate that. So if you are a student that comes to me freshman year and you say, "Hey, I'm a graphic design major. I need to have X amount of hours or this much in my portfolio at the end of my career here in order to graduate. I'm really interested in esports. Is there anything that you guys can do to help me, bulk up my portfolio, things like that?" I'll be like, "Hey, we've got daily advertisements that we have to put out for our matches to let people know what time and who's playing. Why don't I hand you that? You could start building up that, or if you want to make some new graphics for the social media pages, the Twitch background, whatever it may be. I'm not going to tell you no. I try to have the program be as student-led as possible, to a certain degree, obviously. Don't want too many cooks in the kitchen. You want some leadership there, but you know, whether that's graphic design, social media management, uh, sports information direction and statistics, journalism, commentary, broadcasting. There's so many different avenues that a student can go on that all stem from esports as a whole.
What are some of the future games coming into this program for Marietta for esports?
Honestly, I would say probably the largest possibility of an additional game here in the future is going to be Counter-Strike 2. I had a large population on campus that were interested in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, CS:GO for short. But we just never took the initiative. We had already had so many titles to begin with. But I would say another would possibly be if collegiate competition ever gets around to be created for it, would be Apex Legends. But honestly, I'm those are the only two that I can think of at the moment. Call of Duty is always a highly popular option. It just can be kind of hard for me in on my campus to find students that are interested. So, but those are the three that I would say are the main future potential titles that we would offer.
Of course, also in the potential titles, would you offer any Madden, 2K, FIFA games for titles?
If we can find the interest and if we have students that are coming to us and saying, "Hey, I'd love to, I've found this competition that's supported for colleges, for either Madden, NBA, FIFA," I'm definitely not going to tell them no, and we would do our best to try to get that organized for them for sure.
What are some of your future plans moving forward with the program looking 5 years to 10 years down the road?
I would say one of the biggest ones is just a continual recruitment. We're sitting at about 35 individuals currently in the program between our seven titles. And then, depending on how recruiting goes in the next couple months, at the start of the fall semester, we're looking to hopefully hover around 50 students. That being said, I have a facility that's roughly 570 square feet at the moment and has 16 gaming machines in there currently. Um, Obviously, 50 is much larger than 16. So just even currently with the roster size that I have now, facilitating practice on a regular basis that isn't potentially scheduling a practice into 8 o'clock at night is a little difficult. So one of my biggest goals as well, aside from just general recruitment, is to increase the number of stations that we have in the facility, or even to just increase the size of the facility as a whole. I would Another one's just I really would love to win a championship of some sort or some sort of title. Uh, and also we are currently sponsored by HyperX. They provide all of the peripherals for our facility, so all of your mouse pads, mice, keyboards, headsets, microphones are all provided by them. They recently also just announced that they're doing monitors now that are really nice, so I'd love to enrich that sponsorship with HyperX and potentially even gain more sponsorships as well. And honestly, the biggest one I would say, even aside from recruitment, is to continue to give the students the best experience that we can.
As a head coach for the sports of esports, what is that like? Obviously, getting to see them represent Marietta and put on that uniform that you're wearing.
Honestly, it's one of the best parts of my job, is getting to see that camaraderie and that team spirit and team pride kind of develop and come to fruition in real time. Um, Seeing the students jump for joy when they win a game that was extremely close or that we weren't necessarily projected to win is honestly some of the best times that I can ask for. If I would have had the opportunity to do what they're doing now when I was going to school, I can't imagine how much more enriched my experience would have been.
What advice would you give those high school athletes that are looking to get into competitive esports video games in college?
The big one is going to be, focus on your grades in all honesty. Um, as much as, if not more than your esports career. It's extremely important to remain like goal oriented and ultimately i- if you're coming to us, your goal should be to graduate and to be successful in that avenue. Um, it's extremely hard to, if you're coming to me and you're like, hey, I want to be a professional one of these days, by all means, I'm going to try my darndest to get you to that level. But it is, I will also be the first to admit that that is an extremely tall order, and it's arguably more difficult to do than to even potentially be a professional athlete.
Of course, what advice would you give those college athletes looking to get into competitive esports on the college level?
Uh, Again, it's going to be like kind of focus on, your main goal. Also, a huge aspect of being a collegiate player is making sure that you're responsible and that you use your time wisely. That time management is extremely important. Um, I have students come to me and say, "Hey, coach, I gotta unfortunately miss practice today. I kind of been slacking on this project. I need to get done. It's going to be a huge part of my grade." I'm not going to tell them, "Hey, no, you can't go do your project. You can't miss practice." So it ultimately hurts the team more in that aspect. So if we can minimize that with some, healthy time management, that's always going to be an added bonus.
What advice would you give those collegiate athletes that are in esports looking to go play professionally?
Um, if you're going to do that, you gotta ultimately admit and realize what that's going to take in order to get there. If that's something that you can handle, being a student and putting in 7, 8, 9 hours a day in on the game alone, then more power to you. If you're capable, I'm not going to stop you. But if you're coming to me, I would say be marketable in something other than esports. Again, one of our tenets in the program is to use it as a springboard to your success in whatever avenue you're here for. So always have a backup plan. Again, it's harder to get into pro esports arguably than some professional sports. So definitely be marketable.
What advice would you give future coaches looking to get started in coaching in the sport of esports?
Uh, know what you're getting into. Um, a lot of the coaches like me do this simply because it's our passion. We love it that much. We accept the long hours, the wonky schedule, the weird looks that we get from people. Then we explain that this is our job, and even, the low pay sometimes because we love it. Uh, Rarely do you see somebody that is a coach doing it purely because either they were told to do so or because they didn't know what they were getting into last long. Even for coaches that are highly dedicated, the burnout rate is extremely high because, again, as I mentioned earlier, you're wearing 10, 15 different hats at once, and you gotta make sure that you're balancing them all properly. And not only that, I mean, you also gotta have a, you know, life outside of work. Um, it's very hard for me to separate the two at times because I do love my job that much. And, you know, my free time is often spent at the same place where I do my work most of the times, which is right here in front of my computer. Um, but yeah, just know what you're getting into and honestly, don't do it unless you love it.
What advice would you give those head coaches that are looking to build their own esports programs for their own universities and colleges?
I would say the first step ultimately, and it's what I did upon, kind of being bequeathed to the program as a head coach, is take the time to develop and envision what your team's culture will be and what you want it to be. Uh, you know, Figure out early on, are you doing this because you want to win every game and you want to win championships, bring home trophies, things like that? Or are you doing it as an avenue for recruitment for your university? Do you want to do what we're doing and, use the program as much as possible to help enrich and, uh, provide a means to success for the student? Uh, Things along, or do you just want to provide the best experience that you can? And honestly, once you've got that cultural identity selected, just figure out how you're going to go about bringing that to the institution next.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you out on social media along with the Mariette College of Esports at?
So the easiest way to find out anything about us is going to be to visit our link tree that I believe is linktr.ee/Marietta, Marietta, esports, esports. And then for me, my Twitter is at GamesGrump. Most of the time, that's if my handle is GamesGrump everywhere. And then if you were to go to the link tree to our website, my contact information's there if you're interested in learning more, even about Marietta Esports in particular, or if you're interested in potentially even being recruited.
Thank you again, Coach Derek Games, for your interview and best of luck in your future as the Marietta College head coach for esports.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Derek Games, for your interview and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.